I wasn't looking for anything that day. Not love, not trouble, not even a conversation. I just wanted to survive another class without being noticed. That's how I usually did things: quiet, low profile, head down. But fate doesn't care. What you're ready for comes crashing in when your guard is down, when your heart's not armored up, when you least expect it. That's how it happened. I walked into my last lecture of the day, dragging my tired body into the back row like I always did. Hoodie up, headphones still in one ear, pretending the world around me didn't exist. And then she walked in, Professor Lane, and everything changed. She wasn't what I expected, not even close. Most profs I'd had were older, gray-haired, worn-out souls counting down the years to retirement. But she was young, maybe early 30s, with this calm, sharp energy that filled the room before she even said a word. She moved like someone who knew her power but didn't have to show it off. Her voice was low, smooth, and confident, every syllable deliberate. And when she started talking about modern literature, it wasn't like a lecture, it was like storytelling. She didn't just teach the material. She lived it, and somehow made you want to live it too. I remember looking up for the first time in weeks, just watching her, not even fully understanding why. Just ... drawn. Halfway through class, I realized I wasn't pretending to take notes. I actually was taking notes. Real ones. I wrote down every line she said, but not because I had to. I just didn't want to forget how she said things. Her mind was fast, fierce, and she saw things in stories I didn't even think to look for. I felt something in my chest crack open, like she was speaking directly to a part of me I'd buried years ago. She spoke about loneliness in a Baldwin short story, and I swear her eyes met mine for just a second too long. It felt like she knew, like she saw through the sarcasm and distance I wore like armor. When the class ended, everyone shuffled out fast, eager for their weekend. I packed up slow, still processing everything. That's when it happened, Eli. My name, soft, certain. I turned, startled. She was still at the front of the room, stacking papers, but watching me. "Can you stay for a minute?" Ma stuttered. I looked around. No one else was left. It was just me and her. "Sure," I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice cracked slightly. I walked down the steps toward her, my throat dry. She leaned back against the edge of her desk, arms folded, eyes locked on mine. "You're quiet in class," she said, "but your writing speaks loud." I blinked. "You read my submission?" "I read all of them," she said, then tilted her head. "But yours stayed with me." There was something different in the way she said that. Like it mattered. Like I mattered. I don't usually let people read my stuff, I admitted. Most of the time, I just write to survive. She smiled, soft, not mocking. "That's why it's good." Silence stretched between us, charged and awkward and strange. I wanted to say something smart or cool or profound. Instead, I stood there, kind of stunned. "I think," she said slowly, "you could be something. As a writer, I mean. If you gave yourself the chance." No one had ever said anything like that to me. Not really. Not in a way that felt real. "I don't know," I muttered. "Most days I'm just trying to stay afloat." She nodded, like she understood. "That's the best time to write, when everything's barely holding together." Something flickered between us then. I don't know how else to describe it. It wasn't anything I could name, just a feeling, slow and warm and confusing. I left the room buzzing, my heart racing like I'd just been handed a secret. I walked back across campus in a daze, every part of me lit up and restless. She didn't say anything that crossed a line, not technically. But the way she looked at me, the way her voice dropped when she said my name, I felt it. And I know she did too. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, reliving every moment, every glance, every word. I didn't know what this was yet. A crush? A fantasy? Something worse or something better? All I knew was that my world had shifted. And the center of that shift was her. I didn't sleep much. I just kept hearing her say it over and over again. You could be something if you gave yourself the chance. What she didn't know was she was the first person who made me believe I could, and that terrified me more than anything. Asterisk, I should have walked away. After that first conversation, after the way her eyes held mine a second too long, after the way her voice curled around my name like it belonged to I should have known better. But knowing better doesn't mean doing better. Not when someone lights a fire in you that you didn't even realize had gone cold. We started talking more after that day. Not officially, not like we were supposed to. It's just casual conversations after class. A quick question here, a compliment on a line of my writing there. But then it turned into her inviting me to her office hours. If you want to go over your piece, she'd say, like it was all academic. But we both knew it wasn't about the writing anymore. It was the way her eyes would flick to my lips when I spoke. The way I leaned a little too close when I showed her my drafts. We were towing a line we both pretended didn't exist. And then one day, we stopped pretending. It was raining hard. I remember because I was soaked through when I stepped into her office. My hoodie clung to my skin, and my backpack had leaked enough that the pages of my notebook were smudged and curling. She looked up from her desk and gave me this soft, amused smile. "You look like you've been through a storm," she said. I just laughed and shook the water from my sleeves. "Story of my life," I said, and she laughed too. But then something shifted. She stood up, walked over, and closed the door behind me. I remember the click of the handle like it marked a turning point. Like the moment time split clean down the middle, before and after. "You okay?" she asked, softer now, stepping closer. I nodded, but my voice caught in my throat. She was standing close, too close. I could smell her perfume, faint and warm like sandalwood, and something sweeter. I looked up at her, and for the first time, she wasn't just my professor. She was a woman looking at me like she saw something she wanted. And I was looking back the same way. My heart was hammering. My mind was screaming every rule, every consequence. But my body didn't move. I didn't want it to. And then she kissed me. It wasn't hesitant. It wasn't gentle. It was like she'd been holding herself back for weeks and finally let go. Her hands were in my hair, tugging me closer. My arms wrapped around her waist like I'd been waiting my whole life to touch her. There was nothing careful about it, just heat and hunger and the kind of want that makes your skin ache. We pulled apart for just a second, both of us breathless. Both of us stunned. "I shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "You did," I said, because it was the only thing I could think to say. She laughed, but there was tension in it. "God, Eli, ... you have no idea what you're doing to me." I didn't, not really. I mean, I knew what I felt like. My whole chest was vibrating, like something had come alive inside me, but I didn't know what it meant. What would come next? All I knew was that I wanted more. After that, the line was gone, erased, burned. We crossed it that day, and neither of us looked back. We started seeing each other in secret. Office hours became our sanctuary. Notebooks and manuscripts were just props. Her hand would brush mine, and I'd feel the jolt all the way to my spine. One afternoon, she locked the door behind me and kissed me like she'd been starving. We didn't speak, not until we were tangled up in each other, her lips on my neck. My hands gripping the edge of her desk as she pressed herself against me. It was reckless. Wrong, but it felt so right. Like finally someone saw me not just as a student or a name on a roster, but as a man. And I saw her, not as a professor, not as an authority figure. Just her, smart, lonely, passionate, intense. Someone who needed something as badly as I did. We never talked about what it was. Never said the word relationship. But we both knew it was more than just sex. We talked deep into the night sometimes. She'd tell me about her past, how she'd been engaged once but left him when she realized she was living a life built for someone else. I told her things I'd never told anyone about my mom and her drinking, about how writing was the only way I ever made sense of anything. She told me I was the best writer she'd had in years. I told her she made me want to be better, not just at writing better, period. It was dangerous. It was complicated. And still I couldn't stop. Every time I touched her, I felt like I was catching fire from the inside out. Every time she said my name, I heard it laced with something that felt like need, like tenderness, like something we weren't supposed to feel. And every time we kissed, it felt like we were falling deeper into something neither of us could name, but neither of us wanted to escape. I knew it couldn't last forever. We were stealing time, borrowing moments that didn't belong to us. But in those weeks, in those heated, secret hours behind closed doors, I didn't care about right or wrong. I only cared about her. And the way she looked at me like I was the only person in the world who truly mattered. There's a certain kind of silence that settles in when something precious becomes a secret. Not the comfortable, lazy kind that slips between lovers who've spent years getting to know each other. This silence was heavier, sharper. It clung to us even in the moments that should have felt free. After that first time in her office, we became more careful, more deliberate. But the ache didn't go away, just changed shape. It wasn't just about sex or danger or curiosity anymore. It was about us, about who we were when no one else was watching. Professor Langclara, as I'd started calling her in private, had this way of making the world feel like it only existed when she was near, like nothing beyond her mattered. Not grades, not deadlines, not rules. Just the way her fingers traced my jaw when she thought I was asleep. Or the way she whispered my name into the hollow of my throat when we were tangled together in her car, hidden in the back lot behind the Student Union building. We got good at hiding. Too good. We knew which stairwells were empty after dark, which classrooms stayed unlocked. There was one tiny bookstore cafe off-campus, dim lighting, no students. Quiet jazz playing on an old record player where we could talk without whispering. That place became our haven. We sat close in the back, knees touching under the table, pretending to study, pretending not to stare. She read my short stories like scripture, told me where I was holding back, pushed me to bleed onto the page. It's made me feel like my words could be more than just survival. They could be salvation. It's part. And sometimes in the quiet after she kissed me, I believed her. But love, I've learned, doesn't live easily in the shadows. What starts as thrilling eventually turns into weight. We weren't just playing with fire, we were fire. And fire consumes everything, eventually. I noticed it first when she stopped replying to my messages right away. Our late-night texts started coming later and later. One night, I sat in bed staring at my phone until 3 a.m., waiting for the 3 little dots that never came. I told myself she was tired, busy, that professors had lives outside of secret kisses and hallway glances. But deep down, something cold and familiar began to creep into my chest. The same feeling I'd had watching my mom disappear behind a bottle, that slow, bitter ache of being let down by someone you let in too deep. Still, I didn't ask, not right away. I didn't want to break the spell. But when she started canceling our meetings, when she walked past me in class without a smile, without even a flicker of acknowledgement, I knew something had changed. So I waited after class one day. My hands were shaking by the time the last student left. She didn't look surprised to see me, just ... tired. "What's going on?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Just walked over to the window and stared out at the quad. It was sunny, loud with laughter and movement. But in that room, it felt like winter had settled. "I've been trying to figure out how to say this," she said finally, not looking at me. "And I still don't know how." My stomach dropped. "Say what?" She turned then, slowly, arms crossed over her chest like she was holding herself together. "Someone from my past. He came back, An old. Someone I was with before I moved here. I felt the air leave my lungs. You're seeing someone else. It's not like that, she said too quickly, but her eyes gave her away. It's complicated. I stepped back, like the distance between us could shield me from the blow. If we'd been sleeping together, you told me I wasn't just. I meant it, she snapped, eyes suddenly wet. Do you think this is easy for me? Do you think I don't lie awake at night wondering how the hell I got here? I stared at her, every piece of me unraveling. So, what am I supposed to be now? Just your student again? Some kid you coached and kissed and used to feel something? No, she whispered. No, Eli, that's not what this was. But the silence between us said otherwise. That silence had changed, was no longer about danger or secrecy. It was about guilt, about a wall slamming down between us that couldn't be unbuilt with just words. I left before she could say anything else. My body felt hollow, like all the heat had been drained from it. I walked across campus like a ghost. It was almost funny how. Quickly, something that felt like everything could suddenly feel like nothing. I didn't go to class after that. I couldn't. I couldn't sit there pretending everything was fine while she stood at the front of the room, avoiding my eyes. She tried to reach out, called once, sent a couple of emails. I didn't respond. What was there to say? The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even the lie. It was that for a moment, just a few brief, burning weeks I believed someone could actually choose me, that someone saw me and didn't flinch. And then, like everyone else in my life, she left. But even then, I couldn't stop writing. I wrote everything, every memory, every conversation, every kiss, every break, every bruise. I wrote because I had no choice, because my body couldn't hold all that pain unless I bled it out in ink. And every time I finished a paragraph, every time I closed a page, I still felt her. In my words, in the spaces between them. As much as I hated it, hated high, knew it was still love, or something that tried to be in love, I was starting to learn didn't always come with answers, only consequences. Asterisk I thought I could erase. Her. That if I kept moving, if I stayed busy, rode more, worked more, partied harder. Anything I could grind her out of my system like worn-out ink from a ruined page. But grief doesn't work like that. Love doesn't just disappear. When the person walks away, it lingers. It haunts. It becomes a part of your bloodstream. I saw her everywhere. In the curve of a stranger's smile, in the books I used to read for her class, in the cafe we'd hidden away in. The worst part was, I didn't even hate her. I wanted to. God. I tried. I told myself she was selfish, that she played me, that she never actually saw me. But at night, when everything else fell away, the truth crawled back in. I missed her. Not just the way she touched me. I missed the way she believed in me. It's the way she read my work, like it mattered. It's the way she saw through all the bullshit. I'd wrapped around myself and spoke straight to the raw, beating heart of who I was. Weeks passed. I stopped checking my email, stopped going anywhere I might run into her. I knew she'd moved on back to her past, her ex, whoever he was. And maybe that made it easier, knowing I'd been a detour, a moment of escape for her. But it didn't feel like closure. It felt like a door slammed shut without warning, and I was left standing on the other side. Fists bruised from knocking, and then just when I'd started to believe I could survive. Without her, she showed up. It was late. After midnight, and I'd just finished a shift at the bar where I worked weekends. I was walking home, hoodie up, earbuds in, trying to drown out the world when I saw her. Leaning against the brick wall by my building, arms folded, coat tight around her, hair tucked behind her ears the way she always did when she was nervous. My heart stopped. I pulled out one earbud, already tense. "What are you doing here?" She looked up at me and I saw it in her eyes, regret, exhaustion, something else I couldn't name. "I need to talk to you." I almost laughed. "Bit late for that." "I know," she said quickly. "I know I don't deserve it. But please, just 5 minutes." I should have walked away. Should have told her to go to hell. Some stupid. Part of me still burned for her, still wanted to understand why she left without really telling me anything. So I nodded just once and led her up to my apartment. We sat at opposite ends of the couch, the space between us charged and heavy. "I broke it off," she said quietly, looking down at her hands. With him, I didn't respond. I didn't. Trust my voice not to shake. "I thought going back would fix something," she continued. "That maybe I could feel safe again. But I couldn't stop thinking about you." I clenched my jaw. "Then why'd you leave?" She looked up at me, eyes glassy. "Because I was scared of what I felt. Of what this could become. You're younger. You're my student. There's so much at stake." But it didn't matter, 'cause even when I tried to forget, I couldn't. I stood, pacing, because sitting still felt impossible. You can't just show up and say that like it makes everything okay. I was falling for you. I did fall, okay? And you left me in the dark. "I know," she said. "I know I hurt you. You didn't just hurt me, Clara. You broke something. You made me trust again. You made me believe I was worth more. And then you just left." She came over slowly, carefully, like approaching a wild animal. "I'm not asking for a second chance. I just needed you to know the truth. That it wasn't because you weren't enough. It was because I didn't believe I deserved what you gave me." My chest tightened, all the pain rising like a wave. I wanted to kiss her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to never see her again. I wanted her to never leave. "I don't know what you expect me to do with that," I said, voice raw. "Nothing," she whispered. "Just know that I loved you. I still do. But maybe we're not built for the same kind of life. Maybe we're only supposed to find each other to remember what it feels like to be seen." I didn't have a response. I just stood there, heart in pieces, trying to catch my breath. She left that night, no kiss, no promises. It's just a final look that said everything she didn't have words for. And I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the door she walked through, wondering if that was it. Some people come into your life like a fire, not to stay, but to burn away the parts of you that no longer serve you. And when they're gone, all that's left is ash. And maybe, if you're lucky, a new spark waiting underneath. I didn't sleep that night. But for the first time in weeks, I wrote without holding back. Every word bled out of me like a confession. A love letter and a goodbye, all wrapped into one. Because sometimes the truest part of love is learning how to let go. Even when every part of you wants to hold on, the thing no one tells you about heartbreak is how quiet it gets. There's no dramatic crash, no thunderclap, just silence. A kind of stillness that settles into your bones, like winter air creeping in through a cracked window. That was my life after Clara left for good. She wasn't in my inbox anymore. Her name didn't light up my phone. The weight of her absence was everywhere in the empty corners of my apartment. In the half-finished stories I couldn't bring myself to touch, in the way I flinched every time I walked past her old office on the 3rd floor of the Humanities building. She'd said she loved me. She'd said she was sorry. But none of it changed the fact that she left again. And this time it felt final. I went numb for weeks, maybe longer. I passed my classes barely. I showed up at work, nodded through conversations, laughed when I had to, but inside, I was empty. I tried sleeping around, tried to forget her in someone else's skin, but all it did was make the ache worse. I couldn't escape her. I didn't want to admit it, but she'd become part of the way I saw myself. I'd loved her so fully, so recklessly, that when she walked out, she didn't just take herself. She took pieces of me with her. I started writing again, but it was different. Now, it wasn't about impressing her anymore or even proving something to myself. It was survival. Raw and jagged, every sentence felt like reopening a wound. I wrote about a boy who fell in love with a woman he could never keep. A boy who thought being wanted would be enough to make someone stay. A boy who learned too late that love isn't always about holding on, it's about knowing when to let go. My professor, another one, not clarified the story and said it felt like truth. She didn't ask who it was about, and I didn't offer. But I saw it in her eyes. She knew. Then something happened I didn't expect. I got published. A small literary journal picked up the piece. It wasn't a huge deal, but it felt like something had shifted. Like maybe, just maybe, there was a version of myself on the other side of this grief. One that didn't need Clara to be whole. I started getting invitations to open mic nights, readings. A few agents even reached out, curious about what else I had. For the first time in a long time, I started to believe I had a future that wasn't wrapped around someone else's approval, but life. As I was learning, love's a twist. It was during one of those readings on a rainy Friday night that I saw her again. I was halfway through my piece, something new, something honest and sharp, when I caught sight of her in the back row. She was alone, hair tied up, wearing that same gray coat I remembered from the night she left my apartment. For a second, my voice caught. I forgot the next line, but somehow I kept going. I finished the story without looking at her again. And when the applause died down, I told myself she was probably already gone. But she wasn't. She was waiting by the bar when I came out. Not smiling, not crying, just there. Present, real. "Hi," she said softly. My mouth went dry. "You came." She nodded. "I read your piece, the one about the boy and the woman." I looked away. "It wasn't about you." "You don't have to lie," she said. I recognized the silence that made me laugh, tired, bitter. "You're not supposed to be here, I know," she said. "But I needed to see if you were okay. And now that you've seen me?" I asked, folding my arms. "I don't." "No," she admitted. I still think about you. Every day." That stung, more than I wanted it to. "You don't get to say that, not after what you did twice." "I know," she whispered. "And I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to tell you that I still carry it, that I didn't forget." I stared at her for a long time. This woman who'd once made me feel seen, who also made me feel disposable. I loved her. Maybe I always would, but something inside me had changed. I wasn't that kid waiting in her office for her to smile at me again. I was different now, wounded, yes, but standing. "I'm glad you came," I said finally. "But I think this is the—" Last time, her eyes shimmered. "I understand." She left after that. No more promises. No hopeful glances. Just a soft, sad goodbye that felt more like closure than anything we'd had before. I stood there long after she disappeared into the street. Cue? Letting the rain soak through my shirt. And for the first time, I didn't chase her. I didn't beg. I didn't wish. I just stood there, heart bruised but still beating, ready to face whatever came next. Because love doesn't always save you. Sometimes it's the thing you survive. Asterisk, the funny thing about endings is that they never feel the way you expect. I used to think closure came with clarity, some cinematic. It's full circle moment where everything makes sense and all the pain suddenly feels worth it. But that's not how it happens, at least not in real life. Real closure is quieter, slower. It sneaks in on a normal afternoon when you're not thinking about them anymore. When you realize you haven't checked your phone, hoping for their name to light up the screen when their memory floats through your head like a passing breeze instead of a hurricane. That's how it happened for me. Not with a bang, not with a kiss. Just with peace. After all the chaos, the heartbreak, the guilt, the what-ifs, I finally felt free. Not because I stopped loving Clara, but because I learned how to love myself more. It's strange to think how much I'd tied my identity to her, to the way she saw me, the way she touched me, the way she made me feel like I mattered. But the truth is, she wasn't the one who made me mature. I did. I was the one who kept writing when everything fell apart. I was the one who crawled out of the wreckage and made something beautiful from the broken pieces. That's what she gave me, even if she didn't mean to. She woke something up in me. And yeah, it hurt like hell. But sometimes the best things begin with pain. My writing took off more than I expected. That one story about the boy and the woman, our story. Even if I never admitted it by name, opened doors I didn't even know existed. A bigger journal reached out than a small press. Suddenly, I was having meetings with editors and agents, people who believed in my voice the way Clara once had. But this time, I wasn't chasing someone else's approval. I was creating because I had something real to say, because I had lived something messy and raw and human, and I wasn't afraid to put it on the page anymore. I graduated in the spring. I walked across that stage, shaking hands, smiling for photos, wearing a cap I decorated myself. No family in the crowd. No Clara, but I didn't need either. My words were enough. My story was enough. I was enough. That day wasn't about anyone else, it was mine. I still think about her sometimes. Not the way I used to. Not like a wound I can't stop picking at. More like a photograph you stumble on in a drawer, faded at the edges. A little bittersweet, but warm. I remember the way she looked at me when no one else was around. The way she made me feel like my voice could move the world. I remember the sound of her laugh in the quiet cafe, and the way her fingers trembled the night she told me she loved me. I don't hold it against her anymore. She was broken too, just in different ways. We were two people searching for comfort in the middle of our own chaos, and maybe that's all we ever were meant to be, each other's lesson. Sometimes I wonder what I'd say to her now if we ran into each other. Maybe nothing. Maybe just a smile. Maybe just a quiet thank you for all of it, for the fire, for the silence, for the way she cracked me open so I could grow. I wouldn't ask her to explain. I wouldn't ask her to stay. I've learned that not all stories are meant to be continued. Some just live in you forever unfinished. And that's okay. Love changes. It doesn't always die, just shifts. It's become something softer, quieter, more distant. And even though I'll never forget what we had, I no longer ache for it. I no longer need it to feel whole. There's power in that. In knowing you survive the thing you thought might ruin you. In walking away from the wreckage, not bitter, but wiser. Now, when I write, it's not about Clara. It's not about revenge or heartbreak or trying to fill the hole she left behind. It's about life, mine, all of it. It's the joy, the grief, the healing. It's about finding beauty in the ordinary, strength in the lonely moments, hope in the mess. I write because it's who I am, because the stories matter. I matter, and somewhere out there, maybe she's reading these words. Maybe she knows they're about her. Or maybe she doesn't. Either way, it doesn't change anything. I don't need her to see me anymore. I see myself clearly, fully. And for the first time in a long time, that's enough. So this is the end. Not of me, but of us. The kind of end that isn't a collapse, but a release. A deep breath after a long storm. A chapter closed with no regrets. Because even though she asked me to stay after class, I couldn't say no. I finally can.